Okay, on this video, it'll be explaining how to remove the furnace in a 1700 BH Winnebago Micro Minnie. To replace, we're going to replace the circuit board today, and these are the tools that you should need: a flashlight, a screwdriver, multimeter, 2 crescent wrenches, a lighter to light the stove, and a little hand screwdriver, and of course the furnace. We will start this video by removing the 4 screws on the outside of the vent. This step doesn't need to be done until later on, but for the purpose of this video, I will do it now. Ow. And if my assistant can come out here and hold this while I'm videoing, we will remove this. It's a little difficult to get back together if you don't take this off when you're reinstalling the furnace. Just set these on the ground, don't lose them. On our next step, we will be turning off the propane on the tanks. Go for this setup, and you want to turn these clockwise. Make sure both of them are off, all the way off, and then we'll go inside. Turn on the vent fan, and we'll bleed the line, just to make sure all the gas is out of the line. And all the gas is out of the line. Our next step is removing this front. There's 4 screws that you have to remove. And just slightly pull this off. Disconnect this foil. It doesn't have a clamp or anything. Put that to the side. You have 1 more screw inside, which I'll need my screwdriver for. Give me the flashlight. There is a screw that holds it in place, holds the furnace in place. You have to remove that. And set that screw to the side. You can loosen this screw. It holds the little tab in place, but it's really not necessary. You want to remove this duct on this side of the furnace. It has a clamp, but it twists off. And twist and slide. It has these little grooves. You just set that off to the side. Slide the furnace to the other side. There's another one on this side. You can see that? Same thing. And just set that to the side. Your next step is removing this gas line. And let me see. I can't see. Can you see this? Mm-hmm. Or can you see with the film? Okay, there you go. You want to remove this brass nut from this fitting. And you need 2 crescent wrenches. So you want to put one wrench on one and one wrench to hold it. And you turn it. Sometimes. And it's sometimes really tight. And you take, since we already purged the gas, there may be residual gas, but the gas is off, or I should say the propane is off. And that's it. Set that to the side. And it's off. Our next step is carefully slide the furnace out. You kind of have to get this piece around the cabinet. That's kind of like why I removed this before. It slides out. Be careful not to pull the wires off. Okay, so we're going to explain a couple things. This here is where the sail switch, this white connection with these two blue wires, that's the sail switch, which usually goes bad. This here is the circuit board, which is what we're going to replace. Stop recording. Still recording. Okay, we bought a fan control, furnace control board from Dinosaur Electronics. This is a fan 50 plus with the pins. This is the one that they're recommending because it has the pins that connect here, and then the other wire connects here. So they say this one should fit, and the screws that mount go through these holes here. So we will be removing, we are also replacing the power wire, which is down here, because we've had a loose wire down here. This power wire, this red one, it's been loose the past 3 times we went camping, so that's why we're replacing that and the control board. There's a screwdriver. We will be unscrewing these screws. And this board has 2 little pins down in here that hold the board in place, and 2 screws at the top. So we're going to be snipping this wire only because this one's bad, and we're going to fix this wire. This is the power wire. We're going to use this little connector and place the end. Slide it on. Use your crimpers. Make sure the wire is fully inserted into the fitting and crimp. Sure it's fit. Okay, this is the power wire. Try to remember which way these are on. The blue at the top, the black, and this one here goes on this one. And the other red one is on here. Set that to the side. So it has two connectors, one to the blower, one to the power. So this one was the blower, because that's what we took off last. And this one is this one. Our new wire. So we're going to connect this yellow, the power wire, to where it says power. Make sure it snaps all the way down on. We're going to take our 6-pin, blue wires were at the top, firmly press. Take our board, make sure the wires are all out of the way, and put it on the bottom pins down here, but I have a wire that's in my way. Okay, so it sits on the pins there, hold it in place, and we'll take these two screws and we will put them back in place. It doesn't sit exactly flat, they're at an angle. That's the way that they designed it. Should have made a curved board. Is my. Make sure all your wires are in and set. Okay, we will reinsert the furnace back in its place. Before we do that, my assistant is going to go outside and remove the exhaust tube and place it on the ground. Also, this down here, sometimes you have to reach in and reset this button. Sometimes it has a fault on the board and you have to come back in and reset this button. The only way of getting to this button is taking off the panel that holds it in place and moving it to the side. The little clamp that holds it in place, moving the furnace to the side, and then you can pull it out, and that's the vent back there in the back where the vent tube comes in that goes into this here. Okay, this time we're going to put the furnace back in its place. Be careful of the wires, not to damage them. It's a real tight fit because you have to move this little bracket out of the way and curve it, and then you get it into place. And then just put everything back together in reverse order. Putting the gas line on, turning it to the right, hold this, turning it to the right, make sure it's really tight, you don't want any gas leaks. Then we want to take this side tube, move this to the side as much as you can, and it has a little tab here that has to go in a little slot back there at the back. And then you have to slide this other groove to get it into place. And slide this over, put the little tab in. Let me grab the flashlight so I can show you what I'm doing. There's this little tab. This little tab goes into this little slot down there. So you want to try to get that in place, and then slide this piece in. This is probably the heart of the part, is not being able to see. Alright, and it's back in place. So now we just have to reposition the furnace so we can get the outside. Still has to go back about 3 inches, 2 inches. So right now it's not lined up in the back. Okay, now we're almost lined up. So you try to line up this hole with the hole where it was mounted at. It's pretty close. Okay, we're going to go outside and put the vent pipe back in place. And you have to try to get this curved tube inside of the furnace. You don't want to mount it in there first, because it won't go in because it has a curve to it. Actually, I think I have to pull it out a little bit. Okay, that helps. Don't push it all the way in. And this should have a bead of silicone around this edge, around all of this, to keep water from coming in. But for the purpose of this video, we're going to bypass that for right now. Make sure they're nice and snug. Okay, we're going to go back inside. We're going to push the furnace back into place. We're going to find our little screw. And one thing else, this doesn't really have to be done right now, because we want to make sure that it's working before we put it back together. So we're going to stop right now. We're going to turn the gas back on. We go outside. When you turn your gas back on, turn them on real slow, because there's something in the furnace that detects, or not in the furnace, in the regulator. Sometimes it detects a leak, and if you don't open it slowly, it will detect it and it'll say that there's a leak, and it'll shut off the valve, which we've had to do. We replaced our valve also. open them up all the way. We're going to go back inside. You're going to turn the fan on. We're going to purge the gas line from the stove to try to get more gas, so there's not a gas air blockage to the furnace. So we want the light. You want to make sure that you have a good flame. It appears to be good. Turn it off. Okay, at this time, one thing you want to make sure that you do, I've done a bench test before when I had the furnace out here on the floor and I didn't have the tube inside. If you don't have the tube that's in the back of the furnace, it will detect something and it won't allow it to function correctly. So that's why I'm doing it this way. Put the tube in, put the furnace in, and then we will attempt to turn on the furnace. We've also replaced our thermostat to a digital thermostat. Turn it on. We're going to increase the heat. You can hear the fan blowing. Pretty soon you should hear a click, 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 and it should light the furnace. And that's the furnace. And we'll just keep on, let that, make sure that it's going to run through its cycle. Make sure it's heating. And that all appears to be going well. So while it's running, we will put the screw back in place. Take this screen, there's little tabs that hold the foil in place. You just stretch it out over the piece. You line it up with the holes and you put your screws back in place. I like using a drill bit. Only because we've used bigger screws, because I've had this out 4 different times and the little screws weren't holding anymore. And that completes our video. Happy camping!